Don't rush. Rest, rest. Don't rush it, go.
And then the voltage that you had when you balanced it.
That doesn't look like
Well, it is. Okay, how do you find the mass? That's 4/3 pi r cubed. That's a sphere times the density. They give you the density of the material as what? 128 kilograms per cubic meter? Down there. So you can calculate the charge on that particle.
Every year in April, as required by state law, Missoula voters are asked to reapprove school levies. These levies represent a percentage of Missoula area elementary and high schools' operating budgets. Our schools receive these monies from part of the taxes property owners pay. The purpose of this program is to explain what these levies are and their importance to our educational programs.
Well, balance that. Okay, it's balanced at 180 volts, right? Okay, so right now.
The voted levy, which is sometimes referred to as the permissive levy, is the source of operational funds for our school districts, operational funds that are needed in excess of the foundation program. The state funds a certain level of school activity, if you will, school operations, and the rest of it has to be made up through a locally voted levy. This is a voted levy that has to be voted on year after year after year. In the case of School District 1, it represents about 10% of our operational budget. Karen, I understand it's higher for you guys.
It's 17% of our budget. So it's very important. When the state reorganized school districts 3 years ago in terms of funding, there was a lawsuit by several school districts saying that it was unfair that if you lived in a wealthy community, you got so many dollars for your students, and if you lived in a poor community or a community that didn't choose to support levies, your students had fewer dollars. They found that unconstitutional in Montana and many other states. And so the state reorganized, but what happened is they equalized, but they equalized down to a low level. Rather than equalizing everyone up to the best schools, they equalized at a level they felt they could afford, which was somewhere over half of what it actually costs to educate a student. And through levies, that's one of the ways we make up that difference. This is all across the United States. This is a problem that schools, this makes it unequal, because if the voters don't choose to support the schools, the students suffer and they don't get the same dollars in their schools as other communities that may be wealthier, where the voters can afford to support their schools at a higher level. So the lawsuit is going back to the court again, because each year we're asked to vote a bigger percentage of our budget in the levies. What the legislature also did is they capped how much money we can actually spend. So each year we can only raise our budget by 4%. That seems fair, that you can only raise it by 4%. That way a school district that was very wealthy, for example, couldn't raise their budget 30% in 1 year because the voters chose to do that. On the other hand, each year that 4% adds up. So after 4 years, that would be a 12% of your budget that you would be getting from the voted levy again, in addition to the other part of the money. So it's going to be a problem that each year is going to become worse and worse, and it's going to make it more unequal than it was before we had the lawsuit in the first place.
All right, he kicked it. He just didn't feel good about himself at all. So the waste basket came to be helpful to him later. How did it help him later? Well, they took out a circle. Good.
Many people are unaware that a large portion of these levies go toward many basic operational costs for School District 1 and Missoula County High Schools. These are not funds intended for new programs, but go toward existing classes and programs, including art, music, drama, and school sports. These levies also go toward teachers' salaries, and they go toward building maintenance and operational costs.
As I said, the levy represents approximately 10% of our funds. If the levy doesn't pass, the implications for School District 1 are relatively drastic. We have already taken steps in order to figure out what we might do if the levy doesn't pass, or if it passes at a lower level. For example, we just terminated the contract of 16 non-tenured teachers. We did this through program elimination. We have certain programs in District 1 that are not required for accreditation by the state. These are good programs, and we support these programs. They tend to be at the K-5 level, and they tend to be in specialty areas like art, music, physical education. We've decided to terminate these programs in the chance that the levy isn't passed. If the levy is passed, then of course these programs will be restored. I might mention that actually this levy that School District 1 proposes is about $1.9 million. Of that $1.9 million, only $550,000 of it is new money. That is money over and above what was requested in the permissive levy last year. As I said before, the permissive levy has to be passed every single year. That's state law. Even if it isn't increased, it has to be passed again. In any case, we have increased it by $550,000. That doesn't represent our 4% growth. That simply represents the part of the 4% growth that is covered by the permissive levy. Some of it was covered due to an increase in the appraised value of the property. So the value of a mill went up, so we had to levy fewer mills. And we got some of the money in a few other places. So actually, I believe the total increase was about $750,000, and so only $550,000 of that is new money.
For our board, we haven't yet decided what programs would have to be cut. But once again, it would be, as in your case, things that people can live without. Activities, it certainly would probably be the first thing to go. All sports, all speech, drama, anything that we can live without. Other programs that aren't required for graduation would also probably have to go. I would imagine some maybe administrative staff would also be cut, but we haven't made those decisions. We have not. We're going to be discussing that probably before the election. We did not want to scare people and make threats that if you don't pass the levy, there won't be a football program. But if you don't pass the levy and we have to choose between English and football, I don't think football will win.
It's so not a threat. It's reality. The budget for District 1 was balanced prior to the election. That is balanced assuming that we had the $1.9 million. If we don't have it, things will absolutely have to be cut. And so we just decided that it isn't a threat, it's what will happen, and these programs will be cut. And these are very valuable programs. They are, I think, what makes District 1 a special district. It gives that little added bit to our program, which causes our students, I think, really to be excellent students in the very top on standardized examinations, highly above average, as in Lake Wobegon.
One thing I'd like to comment, we've heard many voters say, well, look, my taxes went up $300 last year and it all went to schools. That isn't exactly true. Ever since 105 has been passed and the county government cannot raise taxes, property taxes, what they've done is they've decided to reassess property every year rather than every several years, as was done in the past. So now every year they reassess property value, and in Missoula County, property value is going up every year. So most of the increases that voters have experienced has been because their property's been reassessed, not because the schools have been getting enormous amounts of increase. Between the two levies and our special education, our technology bond, voters would be approximately paying $3 a month more if they had an $80,000 home. So it's not going up $200 or $300 a year because of the schools. It's going up because the property values are being reassessed at higher values, particularly the downtown property values. I think they had an enormous reassessment, and their values did go up. And we're very concerned that the taxpayers, their salaries are not always going up as fast as the taxes are. And we're aware of that. And we really are trying to find ways to save money. Both the districts are talking about ways we can share services. We're talking about food services, personnel services, ways that we can not have to hire any additional people and work together more closely.
Another levy, the Missoula County High School's technology levy, has been cut in half to $250,000 a year over the next 5 years. This money would be used to supply Hellgate, Sentinel, and Big Sky high schools with badly needed computer equipment.
This class is a class called Information Processing. It's offered to juniors and seniors, and we cover several different units. One is filing, database. We use word processing in order for the students to learn how to put correspondence together and get it ready for mailing. The students do work in careers, choosing their career and planning what they're going to do once they leave high school. They also right now are working on the 10-key calculators and the transcribing machines, and are finding that working on the word processing unit is frustrating because at home they have had the opportunity to work on machines that are quick and they're not breaking down often, and these are. So in here we find that a student may start out at one station, and even though the unit only lasts 3 or 4 weeks, that student then probably tries out 2 or 3 different stations because of repair that's needed on old equipment.
We mostly just work on the computers and transcribing machines and calculators, but the computers in our room are pretty old, and they're really slow on booting up and slow on correcting, and it takes like twice as long as the newer computers to do anything at all. And a lot of our computers break down. About 75% of our computers have broke down in this room this year. About everyone's almost, at least once or twice, something goes wrong.
About 9 months ago, a group of teachers, parents, community members got together to start studying what were the needs of Missoula County High School. We realized, I'm not sure why, but all of a sudden we were years behind, it seemed, the rest of the state in technology. The technology's changing so rapidly. And when District 1 revamped their middle schools, they really came up to date with their computer labs. And so now most of the students going through the high schools, the elementary schools, District 1 schools, Hellgate Elementary, Target Range, are having a lot of interaction with computers. And then they get to the high school, and they may go, well, their entire freshman year and only use a computer once the entire year. There are no computers available for them to type papers on. We just don't have the technology. Well, we can't pay for it out of our general fund at this time. We're pretty tight the way it is. So the only way we saw of getting the equipment that we really feel the students need is to have for a general reserve bond fund. And so we originally asked for $500,000 a year. We felt after we heard from the community that they did not want at this time to pay for that much technology in our schools without knowing further exactly where the money was going. So we felt we would have that amount. So we're asking for $250,000 a year for 5 years. That would be about 62 cents a month on an $80,000 home. And with that money, we will buy several computer labs for each of the high schools, a computer lab of, say, 30 computers that will be used by all the different classes. We will probably be hiring community technology experts out of our general fund money at a later date to run those computer labs and supervise the teachers in those labs and supervise the students in those labs. Also, we'll be getting better phone systems and things of that nature. It just isn't going all for computers. It was about a year ago that we turned down Channel 1 because we had no TVs in our classrooms, no current video equipment. The public cried out, "Don't put Channel 1 in, we don't want the commercials. We'll help you find ways to get those TVs." Now we need their help because part of this money, some of our video equipment is 15 years old. Well, anyone knows that video equipment has changed so rapidly in the last few years that we're just out of date. And when our students graduate, they need to know how to use this equipment. For example, a secretary, when she graduates, she's going to, or he's going to have to know how to use WordPerfect, how to use different types of computers. And if we don't have those computers, it's going to limit job options for a lot of our students.
Okay.
To better understand the need for the voted school levies, take a look at the following pie graphs. The first one shows the money sources for the 1992-1993 School District 1 budget. As you can see, the main source comes from the State Foundation Program. The voted levy makes up nearly 10% of the elementary and middle school budget over the next school year. The budget for the area high schools is even more dramatic. 17% of this year's budget is expected to come from the voted levy. Again, these two levies are for current operational costs with a projected 4% increase for inflation. As these graphs indicate, these levies being voted on in the May 5th election are needed to continue all the programs offered in our schools.
Our levy, our permissive levy, we've been talking about programs, and it is indeed meant to fund current programs. However, this permissive levy is funding, as I mentioned, any growth. So any increase in the cost of doing business, the cost of paper, the cost of pencils, the cost of duplicating fluid, you name it, has to come out of this permissive levy. Also, we have negotiated a contract with our certified and our classified staff that involved a pay raise. The pay raise, modest as it is, does come out of this permissive levy. And so all these things that we need to fund, that the school needs to do, comes out of this permissive levy. Well, the reason why it comes out of the permissive levy is because the foundation program wasn't funded for any growth last year and the year before. They, as Karen mentioned, House Bill 28, which passed in '89, set the foundation program to fund the schools, and then had a calculated difference which would be raised by a local voted levy. Then they allowed schools to grow by 4% on that capped budget every year, but they didn't increase the foundation program over those years so that any growth at all that the district chooses to have has to come out of the permissive levy. So it's our contracts, our inflation, any programs that we wish to fund more fully. For example, music in District 1, we adopted a curriculum package but couldn't fund it all, and we put off part of it for funding in the 92-93 year. Some of the funds were meant to do that. Any new textbooks, and on and on and on and on. These are not frivolous monies. These are not monies for any sort of programs that are extra or programs that are not needed. These are basic operational funds to make the school run.
This is a complicated subject. I think we would both agree that it's hard to keep it straight and to figure it out, and we talk about levies and different aspects of this. It's hard, I think, for the general public to understand how it works. And I think both districts are very happy to talk with anyone who has questions. We would much rather have someone call and say, I just don't understand where that money's going, than to just vote no at the polls. Because this money is really important. It wasn't, I think, 2 days ago that there was an article in the paper about Montana, and one of the few things where Montana got a better grade than C was in our education of our students and our highly educated workforce. And I think the reason I moved to Missoula, I know, is because we had good schools in Missoula. And I'm sure that's true for many people that live here. And if our schools have to go to a bare bones budget where we don't have music and art and sports, well, it's not going to attract new business to Missoula. And it's probably going to drive other people to either start private schools or to move.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Montana in general has good schools, and Missoula has good schools in Montana, some of the best. I think I would just emphasize one other thing on this, is that this permissive levy does not just fund art, music, and sports. These are operating funds that fund the program in general. Sometimes the way we tend to look at is the very edge of the permissive levy, that is the new money which we fund some new programs out of, and we kind of say, well, this is what is going to be extra, but the basic $1.9 million, as we said, is 10%, in our case 17% for the high school of our total operating funds. It would be absolutely crucial for continued operation. If this levy didn't pass in any form, it would be a whole new ball game for District 1. We would be breaking contracts, entering into new negotiations. It would be disastrous.
The May 5th school levy election will be a very crucial one for Missoula voters. Please make an effort to vote.
Softly, real soft. Here we go.
My home's in Montana, I wear a bandana, my spurs are of silver, my coat is gray. When